shoes on.
Well, it is a story that has got the whole country talking, whether it's on social media or in social gatherings. Self-proclaimed prophet Dr. Victor Kanyari is now the talk of town.
Yes, he certainly is, and Wilson, but it is for all the wrong reasons. After his scheme to fleece unsuspecting Kenyans through fake miracles was exposed by KTN's Jicho Pevu and the Inside Story.
And tonight on KTN Prime, we bring you reactions to this story while asking a pertinent question. How was he able to execute his scheme so flawlessly?
Yes, that's coming up, but on a more hopeful note, about 890,000 students will begin sitting their KCPE exams tomorrow. And from all of us here at KTN, we'd like to wish you success.
That's right. This is KTN Prime.
People are actually shocked. They didn't know something like that really existed.
Kama ni kuiba, siwache ni kuibia leo. Utume tu hiyo written, alafu niombe na wewe na Mungu akubariki katika jina la Yesu. Amen.
The mask is off, but can Prophet Kanyari be prosecuted? Sharp reactions to KTN's Inside Story.
And an uneasy calm in Kapedo as suspected attackers surrender their illegal firearms.
Also coming up, over 100 refugees are arrested in KAKUMA.
Kenyans were general con approximately 4.8 million Kenya shillings.
And bribing to become a soldier, a stern warning from KDF.
You're watching the most comprehensive bulletin in the country. My name is Wilson Mburu.
And I'm Nancy Kachungira. Our sign language interpreter is William Silla. Now, the man of the moment is Pastor Victor Kanyari, whose scheme to con churchgoers has generated overwhelming rage from Kenyans.
Now, members of the public, especially on social media, are now calling for the prosecution of the pastor, while his wife, renowned gospel musician Betty Bayo, has now distanced herself from anything ungodly.
But legally speaking, can Pastor Kanyari be brought to book? Well, Sharon Mamanye will be telling us more about that just a little later on in this bulletin.
Well, as we wait for Sharon to give us that story here in Nairobi, one officer who survived the Kapedo attack has been recounting his ordeals.
That's right. The officer says that he had to deploy many special tactics to survive the deadly attack.
He spoke a short while ago from his hospital bed after a visit by the Inspector General of Police, David Kimayo.
Right, well, I'm told that we do have Ian Wafula on the phone, and he's going to be giving us some updates on the situation in that part of the country. Ian, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, Nancy, I can hear you. Exactly just about 30 minutes ago, we witnessed the fifth firearm that was surrendered today being handed over to the Deputy County Commissioner, that is Daniel Kirui. Today we also witnessed some of the professionals from the community, among them two teachers who took their time off to go to talk to some of the elders and also the youth, trying to convince them to surrender these firearms, and also urging them to fulfill their promise that they gave the president yesterday while he was with them at the meeting. So out of this, a total of 5 firearms were surrendered today by some of the Pokot youth who were involved in the ambush that saw 21 police officers die and 3 civilians dead. The Deputy County Commissioner says they are targeting to recover 22 firearms, of which now they're left with 17 of them. Nancy?
Well, Ian, if you can tell us exactly what is going on right now, what are the security arrangements at the moment?
As of yesterday, we witnessed KDF troops moving into Kapedo, and because of the vastness of the land, we were not able to follow them exactly to where they were. But there were complaints and rumors from the residents that in the morning, at least 4 explosions were heard, and this is believed that the 4 bombs had been launched by the Kenya Defense Forces. And the rumors further said that at least 2 people had died, 2 herders had died from these explosions, but this was yet to be confirmed. Now, the death of these 2 people angered some of the Pokot elders who were in the process of talking to some of the youth to voluntarily surrender the firearms. As of right now, there's still a bit of tension because it is yet to be identified where exactly the Kenya Defense Forces are targeting, but the tension has subdued compared to yesterday. Wilson?
Well, thank you very much, Ian, for that update. We'll, of course, be keeping in touch with Ian Wafula, who is in the Kapedo area, to tell us more about the situation in that area. And elsewhere, the Independent Police Oversight Authority has firmly put the blame on the police service following the death of the 22 officers in Kapedo. The authority blames the service for failing to put in place what it calls effective strategies to protect its officers. KTN's Linda Ogutu now reports on the worrying trend of police officers being killed in the line of duty.
At the mortuary, family and friends flock to view the bodies of their loved ones killed in the line of duty in Kapedo in the heart of Turkana East. And the Independent Police Oversight Authority is outraged, not just with the bandits but even the National Police Service. The authority says the police failed to prevent the death of the 22 officers.
The police command is unable to correctly analyze the problem at hand, prescribe and implement solutions.
IPOA says the Kapedo killings could have been avoided if the National Police Service heeded its recommendations after the Mpeketoni attacks at the coast, where over 60 people, including police officers, lost their lives. Back then, President Uhuru Kenyatta partly blamed the attacks on police officers, who he said did not play their part. Things are no different this time.
The incoherent structure within the National Police Service will continue becoming a challenge when it comes to us dealing with the security in this country.
Security analyst Mwenda Mbejiwe says that failure in leadership that has led to the loss of lives of police officers in the line of duty could be Kenya's undoing.
That we have men there, up there, and women commanding the police who have no idea, absolutely no idea, what commanding a police force is. These men are not only sleeping on their job, they are snoring on their job.
It is a top concern for IPOA as well.
I started to think of the low morale now in the National Police Service.
Pokot elders have admitted that Saturday's attack was a result of what they called mistaken identity. They say officers undertaking a security operation in the area were mistaken for attackers from neighboring Turkana County. They asked for 2 weeks to talk to their people and they would return the missing guns and uniforms.
If President Kenyatta's ultimatum to those people to return the gun fails, right now as we speak, is armies, the units in Eldoret or the units in Nakuru right now they should be on the way going there, because that's what a commander-in-chief says. He gives his word and he backs his word with his fire.
Bijiwe says this is the time for the president to take a stand and defend his forces, make it clear that no one can get away with killing a police officer.
President Moi, in about 1999 or 2000, thereabout, some Al-Shabaabs, Somali militias, those days were militias, crossed the border at Liboi and attacked a police station and took away guns and, attacked the officers and went away with an entire armory. And so President Moi, the next day, he called, of course, their elders to State House, and then he spoke to the Somali elders and he said, look, you're going to have to call those people anyhow. What I need is I have given 24 hours to have my guns returned to my men in Liboi. And if I don't get the guns, I'll come for them. So in the meantime, when President Moi gave the ultimatum, I was in Moi Air Base, Air Defense Control Unit, we were all put on high alert, and 7 Kenya Rifles unit from Langata were all brought in trucks and put in military buffaloes and flown to Wajir. Then President Moi ordered for his fighter jets to be scrambled over the airspace. By midday the next day, it was not even 12 hours gone since the ultimatum. All those militias gathered the guns with every single bullet and brought them over again to the station.
Indeed, this is not the first time that Kenya is witnessing the killing of police officers in the line of duty. In November 2012, at least 42 officers and reservists were killed in the Suguta Valley near Baragoi while on a mission to recover stolen cattle. Their guns and uniforms were also stolen in that attack. The then Internal Security Minister Kato Olemetito vowed to bring those responsible to justice. That justice is yet to be served 2 years on. Bijiwe says that should have been the last time a police officer died in the line of duty.
2 exact situations separated only by time. And that means our police don't even train on counter attacks of the nature of an ambush. Because had they been talking to NIS and hoping that NIS was not caught pants down again, having gathered no information on the ground, if NIS had infiltrated those cattle rasta cells and known that these attackers were going to attack the police, they would have shared that information with their colleagues. So basically there was no interagency cooperation. And by the way, our security forces need to realize the sooner they begin to talk to each other, the sooner they deal with this problem.
That scorecard by IPOA now puts the top security officials on the spot with questions on whether or not the killings in Baragoi and Kapedo could have been avoided. And what needs to change in the security system to stop the killings and improve the morale of the security forces. Linda Ogutu, KTN Prime.
Well, from that indictment of the current state of the police service, let's go to Kakuma, where 106 refugees have been arrested following the killings at the camp last week. KTN's Mercy Kandia has been following that story, and she now joins us from our Eldoret office with this update.
The situation at Kakuma refugee camp can be described as calm. According to the OCPD, the area OCPD David Nyabuti, he says 106 refugees have so far been arrested and will be arraigned at a high court in Lodwar this week. He says among the 106, majority of the 106 refugees are from the Nuer and Dinka communities of South Sudan National. The clashes started on Monday last week after an alleged rape case between the Nuer and Dinka communities, and when tension was still high within Kakuma refugee camp, a Burundian motorcyclist accidentally knocked down a Nuer boy, sparking even more clashes that led to the death of 8 refugees at the camp. According to the area OCPD, he says calm has been attained at the camp. A security meeting was held earlier on today, and a peace meeting has been scheduled for later on in the week between the South Sudan refugees and communities from the Great Lakes. This include the Burundi, the Rwandese, and the Congolese. According to the refugee commissioner, the Commissioner for Refugee Affairs, he says that they are also talking to the locals, the Kakuma locals, these are the Turkanas, to ensure that they get more land to settle even more refugees, as the camp has exceeded its capacity of 100,000 as it currently hosts 170,000 refugees. That's it from the North Rift. I hand you now back over to our studios in Nairobi.
Thank you very much, Mercy. Now, as we said earlier, one of the things that everyone is talking about at the moment is that story that was on Jisho Pevu and Inside Story last night. Pastor Victor Kanyari, who schemed to con churchgoers, has really got Kenyans talking. Yeah,
there's been a lot of fury, especially on social media, and people are now calling for the prosecution of the pastor, while his wife has also taken to social media to distance herself from what she says is anything ungodly. And this brings us to our big question tonight, and we're asking, are the victims of Pastor Kanyari's schemes to blame for their misfortunes? Are the victims of Pastor Kanyari's schemes to blame for their misfortunes? There are some people who say that, you know, some of these people who fell victim to some of these schemes it's actually in their own it's their own doing.
I actually saw a tweet that said you can't con an honest person. So the people there were trying to get quick gains, and that's why they fell for these schemes. But there are a lot of opinions out there, because of course some people say that these people are in most cases desperate, and that's why they end up in places like these. Let us know what you think, and you can do that by tweeting us at KTN Kenya, at Kachingira, and at Wilson_Mburu. If you'd rather send an SMS, you can do that as well. 22155. Do begin with a yes or a no when you do so that we'll be able to tabulate your thoughts into a poll result at the end of this bulletin.
Now, coming up immediately after the news is your weekly crime series, Case Files.
Yes, and tonight, KTN's Dennis Onsarigo is in Naivasha, where a self-confessed serial killer and rapist held the town at ransom 2 years ago.
And the so-called Naivasha cannibal was accused of killing, sucking and eating the flesh of his victims.
Here's a sneak preview of that.
Kafinya damu kwa kikombe kabisa ikajaa.
I'm clear, I don't do that.
Haikuchukua hata dakika 10. Watu wa media walijaa hapa.
So akachukua kisu na akanidunga sasa hapo. So I could feel nguvu yenye iko ndani yake.
Nilisikia mambo hiyo nikastuka.
To me, I cannot connect. I've never done it.
I remember one asked me, bado mnakunywa damu?
So nikatoa sema sina damu, nikapelekea pastor.
Go right after this bulletin for details of that story coming up on Case Files.
Yes, that's certainly one not to miss. Now, here's a question. How much would you be willing to part with to get a job?
Well, in the last 4 years, Kenyans seeking to join the Kenya Defence Forces have been conned 37.2 million shillings.
That's a really large amount. Well, last year alone, prospective candidates parted with 4.8 million shillings.
This year's recruitment exercise kicked off today, and as Rita Tinina reports, KDF says it will not be business as usual for personnel soliciting bribes and candidates seeking favors.
The search for servicemen and women to join the Kenya Defence Forces kicked off in 15 of the 47 counties in the country. For 1 month, 16 recruiting teams will conduct the exercise in 288 districts in the 47 counties. From physical fitness, height, weight and age conditions to meet, prospective candidates went through the drill. Claims of political interference, unequal distribution of slots among districts and corruption have in previous years marred the exercise.
Many young Kenyans wishing to join the KDF have in the past been vulnerable to fraudsters who masquerade as military officers with powers to employ.
For many young Kenyans, the quest to join the military has been a costly affair. Now the Kenya Defence Forces is putting some figures to the tainted pursuit to join the KDF.
Kenyans were generally conned approximately 4.8 million Kenya shillings.
And that was last year alone, when there were 19 bribery cases involving 4 servicemen and 15 civilians. In 2012, prospective candidates were conned 7 million shillings by 12 KDF personnel. In 2011, 6 KDF officers obtained some 7.5 million shillings in bribes from 38 civilians. The figure more than doubled in 2010, where 17.9 million shillings exchanged hands between 23 KDF personnel and 34 civilians. In total, more than 37 million shillings ended up with KDF personnel, and it was not through their payslips. 48 military personnel who are involved in the conning scheme have either been sacked or charged in court. More than 100 civilians who issued bribes have also been arraigned in court. And this time, KDF is warning its personnel who may want to make an extra coin through the recruitment, as well as civilians who may want to be favored.
Harsh, appropriately swift disciplinary action taken once we discover that you've been involved in such fraud.
At least 2,500 candidates will be recruited this year. KDF says it has put in place measures to ensure the exercise is free and fair. But with thousands of unemployed Kenyans desperate for a chance to turn around their lives, just how to make sure that chance does not come at a price will be a tall order. Rita Tinina, KTN.
Let's go back to talk about security matters. And as you are aware, 22 officers were killed in Kapedo area. And one officer who survived that attack has been recounting his ordeals. The officer says he had to deploy many special tactics to survive that deadly attack. He spoke a short while ago from his hospital bed after a visit by the Inspector General of Police, David Kimayo.
I'm in charge of Kapedo GSU camp. So on that fateful day, I had gone for fuel at Kabarnet as usual, and there was a lorry that was coming from Tot. That is our base camp. We met at Chemolingot, then we started moving towards our camp. But 8 kilometers to our camp, between Ameyan and Chesitet, was when I heard gunshots. These people had laid an ambush, about 3 ambushes along the way to our camp. So the lorry managed to drive through the 3 ambushes, but my vehicle, which was behind, could not manage to go through because all the 4 tires were flattened and we could not go through. But I encouraged my driver to press on the fuel of the vehicle. So the vehicle did not follow the actual route but went towards the valley. Near the river. So we alighted at the ambushes just within the river. Then by then I had been shot on my hand and I could not fire. But the officers who were behind the vehicle and the driver had not been hurt. Ahead of the vehicle I was with a teacher of Kapedo Primary School. The teacher had been shot on the leg, but when we reached on the liver was when he broke his leg and he could not move. So because of that pressure, I fainted. Then I handed over one of my rifle, the rifle that I had, to one of the officers and told them to fight through. Then I lay down there. After some time, when I regained consciousness, was when I heard whistles, these gentlemen now calling their fellows to come and cotton the area. So I woke up and I followed the river. I saw the teacher lying down, but I could not assist. And then there was a small tunnel that was bringing the rainwater to the river. I followed that tunnel until I caught a place that could accommodate me. Then I hid myself there. I took some soil, then I smeared the parts that could be seen. Then I also uprooted some grass. Then I planted it on my face so that they could not see me. I heard the teacher saying, "I'm not a Turkana, please spare my life, don't kill me." But after some time, I heard 3 bullets, then I knew the teacher was gone. The officers at the river tried their level best to fight through, but they could not manage the number of raiders. So eventually, they also lost their lives.
A very harrowing experience there. Well, let's remind you of our big Q tonight. We're asking you whether the victims of Pastor Kanyari's schemes are to blame for their own misfortunes. And the tweets are coming in thick and fast. There's one here from Michael Ngenye. He says, Pastor Kanyari's victims are blameless. There are certainly many more, even in mainstream churches, following yet to be caught pastors.
Noah Kirich here says, no, willing service provider, willing believer. We take a very quick one here from Peter Matheka, who says, yes, they are to blame. You can only be ripped off if you're looking for a quick fix.
Well, there's a no here from Kasuti. He says, the pastor took his pulpit as an advantage to con his congregation who were desperate for divine intervention, and that is abuse of office. Well, keep letting us know what you think by tweeting us at Kachungira, at Wilson_Mburu, and at KTN Kenya, or you can send us an SMS.
22155 is the SMS number. We take a short break now, but don't you go away. We have much more coming up right after the break. Don't you go away.
Well, good evening and welcome to this edition of Job Center. And this evening, we'd like to delve more into sustainability reporting, what exactly it is and how it's changing trends in the business environment. And of course, the concept of sustainability is moving beyond initial scope, which focused then on reducing companies' energy footprint. And now this time, it's more focusing on different issues. And to tell us more about sustainability reporting this evening is Bob Collymore, the CEO of Safaricom. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
How would you describe sustainability reporting in Kenya? And knowing that you just launched your 3rd annual report just recently, how would you describe sustainability reporting? I think it's poorly done in Kenya. But rather disappointingly, we're also finding that many companies, I think 96% of the top 4,000 companies, fail to disclose what they should be disclosing. And people don't understand, you know, we're chatting off camera just before we started about what is sustainability, and people tend to think about it only in terms of environmental sustainability or CSR. But it's actually much more than that. It's about accountability. It's about accountability. And what are you focusing on in your sustainability report this year round? So in our company, we've actually identified the material issues, and that's important for any business. What are the material issues? It's about network quality, it's about our employees, it's about the environment, of course, it's about ethics and corruptions, it's about energy use. And not just energy use in terms of ensuring that we've got enough to run the company, but also efficient energy use. And so we've talked about our carbon footprint. And you know, many people often say, don't you just use this as a form of PR? Well, that's not true, because actually, if you look at this year's report, you'll see our carbon footprint has grown. You'll see our use of diesel has grown, our use of water has grown. But if you're not measuring those things and reporting on them, then you can't fix them. Right. And just like you say, you can't fix them. What we're seeing in Kenya today is not many companies understand sustainability, as well as the media as well. We do not understand what exactly sustainability reporting is. So in simple, basic terms, what exactly are we supposed to know that is not yet known? Have we misreported sustainability in a way? I think you focused on the wrong things. And you know, I give you a hard time when we launched our report the last time. And you did tell me what you were going to headline on, and you headlined on the fact that we had fired 56 people, because that was an easy headline for the media to pick up. And that's partly because we as the business sector haven't done enough to explain to media what it's about. We have the Global Compact. You know, I sit on the Global Compact board, and we also have a local network, and that's going to help a lot of companies to get their heads around it. I'm really pleased to see some companies getting on the back of this. Now, tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, Joshua Oigara will be launching his sustainability report, and they've been publishing sustainability reports since 2007, I believe, and it's actually quite a good report. I've seen a sneak preview. But we also had companies like Unilever, Total, lots of other companies who are doing it. But we want to kind of get it across the businesses that it's not just about big businesses that have to do it. You know, we all need to do it, because we all need that transparency and that accountability. Okay, and I think there are about 32 companies, maybe 36 companies that have released sustainability reports out of 62. What does that tell about business companies today?
Well, that sounds like a big number, but what you have to look at is the quality of the reporting that's in there. Some people do tend to use it a bit as a PR thing, to say, look how smart we are. Other people use it as a transparent thing, to say, if we are measuring it and reporting on it, then we are managing it. And if we're managing it, then we can fix it. How else do I deal with diversity in the workplace, for example, to make sure that we have the right representation of employees with disability, the right number of women? Now, if you look at our report, you see that roughly 50-50 men and women in the company, but actually delve a little more, and then you'll see in the top management, it's only 30% who are women.
All right,
and then
there is one woman among every 2 men. That is a case point for Safaricom.
In our case, yes. And then when you delve to the next level down, you see what that percentage is. Actually, the men outnumber the women by a larger number. And then you say, so what are we going to do about it? And that's what we put in the report. We said, this is what we're doing. We're actually spending more on training women. And if you look at the last year, 60% of our recruits were women, and 40% were men. If you look at the training hours for women compared to men, they were greater. So we say to you, this is where we are, this is where we want to get to, and this is how we will get there. And so next year you'll judge us. And we don't always hit it. So sometimes the numbers are not where we want them to be.
All right, let me ask this. Well, I'm going to ask again some of the employees that were terminated from Safaricom. Has this affected the company in any way in terms of sustainability?
Well, I'm hoping it's improved the company, because what you need to do is you need to get rid of the bad apples, otherwise the whole bowl of fruit goes rotten. And last year it was 56, the year before that it was fewer, and the year before that it was higher. So by publishing it, we actually run our flag up the mast to say to people, we don't tolerate this in the company. And actually, you know, by you running with the headline last couple of weeks ago, it was not a bad thing, because it sends a strong message back into the organization to say that it's not going to be tolerated.
All right, and let's talk about also the academies that Safaricom is having, especially across institutions of higher learning. Has it helped in a way, if I could even connect this to sustainability, has this helped the company in a way to grow? And if this is used as a recruitment area, what exactly do you use to qualify people to get into Safaricom?
It's not really used as a recruitment tool, because if you take the work we're doing with the journalism fellowship, for example, we don't hire journalists, but we think it's important that the standard of journalism is lifted in the country, the standard of business reporting is lifted in the country, because then we don't, you know, tomorrow we're announcing our half-year results, then people kind of get it in context. Similarly, some of the other academies that we run, it's not so much for recruitment. We simply want to grow the pool so that we have more to choose from. We do a lot of work with women in technology, for example. So most of our interns are actually women. At any one time, we have probably about 30 young women in the organization, not because we want to hire them, but we want to give them exposure to a work environment. We want to prepare them for a work environment. So we can pick and choose if we wanted to, but also it gives, you know, the business community in general a larger choice.
All right, and with the university academies, is it also the same thing? Is what is happening there just for helping younger people get to know what they're supposed to be doing? What exactly do these academies do? So
we kind of look at it in a slightly different way. What we say is one of the biggest challenges that we have as a country, and we heard the President talk about this over the past few days as well, the biggest challenge is youth unemployment. And if we have growing youth unemployment as a country, then as a business community, we're going to have a problem. You know, I had a session last week with some people where we talked about Walmart coming into the country, and I said, what's the point of Walmart coming into the country if young people don't have jobs? And so we as a business community, and I don't talk just as Safaricom, companies like us, companies like KCB, we need to grow that base, we need to grow that capability and skills so that we have a market to address in a few years' time.
All right. And is there any specific reason as to why CEOs feel powerless to, you know, get into sustainability?
Absolutely. That's a very good question. It's a very good question. It's been one which has been kicking around for the past few months, actually. And The Guardian wrote a very good article on this last week. And one is that investors don't care. Two, you don't get board support for it. I mean, I'm very lucky that my board does support me. You can feel a bit lonely. You can feel a bit like a tree hugger because people are focusing entirely on the numbers that I'm going to announce tomorrow afternoon. They're not looking at the broader picture. Whereas investors, and I'm a big proponent of getting investors to start to think about this. So when I go to New York, I spend a lot of time explaining to them why they should be concerned about the business not for the end of the year, but for 3, 4, 5 years out from now.
Right.
We need to be creating markets for those businesses to succeed.
All right. One of my final questions to you is, yesterday we did have an expose on, you know, fake pastors and all these things that they do and how they fleece, you know, poor Kenyans of their money. And half the time, the telemarketing center was being operated by these young people. And not even above that, I mean, all these people were using Safaricom lines. So what does that say about the company?
Well, it says that 68% of the people in the country use Safaricom lines. So it's hardly surprising that they do so.
But how does that actually, is there a way in which you monitor who is using the phone or what they're using the phone lines for? Because what we're seeing now is, you know, these pastors, you know, taking advantage of innocent Kenyans and then fleecing them of their money, and then later on their SIM cards are switched off, or they switch lines and then, you know, do the same thing with different lines. Is there a way in which you are trying to, you know, get rid of that? We can only act within the law, and if we monitored your phone calls, you wouldn't like that. So we can't monitor people's phone calls. Their behavior is different. So we have daily, we have, you know, hundreds of misuse which is coming in largely from prisons, and then we switch it off. But we can't act unless we have, you know, unless there's a court order or a police order for us to do so. So would you agree with the fact that telecom companies should be allowed to tap phone calls? Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want them to tap my phone calls, so there's no reason why we should be tapping other people's phone calls. I don't think that's the case. I think that where there's misbehavior, you know, there is a legal process that one goes through, and you know, we will disconnect and we will report and provide you know, telephone data records, not content, to the law enforcement agencies. All right. So tomorrow you're launching your results. What should we expect? You should expect me to wear a white shirt and perhaps and a blue tie or a red tie. It can't be a blue tie. It'll probably be a green tie tomorrow. I don't know. Oh, okay. So is that all we should expect tomorrow? That's as much as you can expect, yes. All right. I guess you don't want to talk about that. Thank you so much for making time for us here on Job Center and expounding more on sustainability reporting. I hope that we have gotten as much knowledge from it. Your final remarks, if you may? My final remarks is I would urge businesses to really embrace this sustainability thing. And it's not a lonely thing. If you join the local network of the Global Compact, which is run under the auspices of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, you know, there's good company there, and there's lots of tools and learnings you can pick up from your peers. Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and to appreciate. CEO Safaricom, Bob Collymore, speaking to us about sustainability reporting and how exactly the younger people can benefit from it, and just about all the young Kenyans knowing that youth unemployment is so rife. Well, my name is Joy Doreen Bira. Business is up next. And welcome to business. But before we can get into the real business stories, this is a story of a man that everyone in the country is talking about. Pastor Victor Kanyari, whose scheme to con churchgoers has generated overwhelming rage from Kenyans. Kenyans, especially on social media, are now calling for the prosecution of the pastor, while his wife, renowned gospel musician Betty Bayo, distanced herself from anything ungodly. But legally speaking, can Pastor Kanyari be brought to book? Sharon Mumani tells us more.
From the skillful enactment of fake worship, fake testimonies cooked behind the pulpit.
Ukatuma SMS ya shida yangu, ukaniambia nikuje Tuesday, ama niseme Wednesday. Ukaniambia nikuje Wednesday, nikakuja, ukanitabiria.
To the damning exposure of a man stealing in the name of the Lord.
Nobody has ever been coached because of the false testimony.
The man, one quote-unquote prophet Victor Kanyari of Salvation Healing Ministries in Nairobi.
Uanga unatoka damu mikono yako.
Hapana, sijawahi sasa. Hapana.
Na nini inaendelea sasa?
The episodes on prayer predators and Makria Injili by KTN's Inside Story and Jicho Pevu took the whole country by storm. What followed was an overwhelming expression of shock, disbelief and rage from the public.
They just are there to enrich themselves. Really, it is a business and it is shameful.
Kiongozi mwenye anapatikana na historia kama hiyo, kwangu mimi naona naraumu wa Kenya.
At Washe 26 tweeted, quote, "Such pastors who deceive people seeking God have a special place in hell reserved for them." End of quote. At I am Danny K tweeted, quote, "That Pastor Kanyari should be held for extortion." End of quote. In a twist of events, Pastor Kanyari's wife, renowned gospel singer Betty Bayo, distanced herself from the expose. She wrote on her Facebook page, quote, "Anything that is unholy, anything that is ungodly, anything that contradicts my faith, anything that mocks the God who got me from the wilderness and humble beginnings and raised me for his glory, I'd rather die than be part of it." End of quote. Our attempts to get in touch with her have to the time of airing this story borne no fruit. However, not everyone is against the implicated pastor, with one Grace Gishuru posting on the pastor's page, quote, "They are talking and you are still being blessed." End of quote. But just what exactly are the legal implications of this expose? A big number of the members of the public are calling for Pastor Victor Kanyari's prosecution. This can apparently happen in two ways.
Criminal processes require a complaint. The persons who are aggrieved have to complain to the police station, and it is recorded by the police, after which investigations are to be initiated. But without a complaint, the police can only investigate based on public interest and merely to interrogate what actually was happening or whether the allegations are true.
Whereas the straightforward way is said to be by the victims of the pastor's extortion filing a complaint, Law Society of Kenya Chair Eric Mutua points another way.
And what they need to do is to come with that evidence, either to come to the Law Society, we refine it, and then we forward it to the DPP's office, because those are persons who should be charged with obtaining money by false pretenses. Those are people who should be charged with fraud. Those are people who should be charged with theft.
So the recording may be used, but there is a certain threshold of evidence that it has to comply with, whereby it has to be clear, and also the one who took the clip has to personally produce a certificate to confirm that it is not actually a stage-managed affair.
Freedom of worship is one guarded by the Kenyan Constitution. Over time, there have been growing concerns over the practice of corruption and unethical conduct in church. The debate of checks and balances come into play.
So the Registrar of Societies is obligated by the law to investigate, leave alone the police, to investigate and interrogate the propriety and the actions of the church. Because the churches, in as much as they are not regulated in the strict sense, need to curtail what actions they take, so that to protect worshippers and also to protect the sanctity of worship.
The media and the public alike have been under criticism for being too quick to forget such damning cases. And now the fate of Pastor Victor Kanyari of the Salvation Healing Ministries is one the entire country awaits to see with bated breath. Sharma Manyi, KTN.
And Safaricom CEO Bob Collymore has clearly stipulated that there's nothing like tapping phone calls to find out who is committing fraud. But now let's move on to more business. Starting off in Tanzania's Dar es Salaam in 1997, IT solutions company Technobrain has grown from 1 to 23 countries, serving governments, NGOs, and the private sector. Now, I happen to have spoken to Manoj Shankar, who is the man behind one of Africa's most recognized and successful information technology companies on a continent that only recently adopted computerized solutions.
When you build a company, you never think about an award.
Named CNBC All Africa Business Leaders Awards Entrepreneur of the Year, owing to his successful efforts to build a unique African company that puts Africa first. As a communications technology solutions developer, 48-year-old Manoj Shankar is CEO and founder behind Technobrain.
There is always a perception in Africa that certain things cannot be done here. Okay? When I say certain things, it's a complex, large business applications. And so when we started this company, we started as a training company.
Founded in 1997 in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, Technobrain is now present in 23 countries worldwide, 19 of which are in Africa. With 1,600 employees globally, 95% of Technobrain's revenue is generated from the public sector, maximizing on services ranging from information technology and enterprise solutions, integrated financial systems, airport revenue management systems, intellectual property, among others.
Well, last so many years, we have developed 75 solutions. So when I say solutions, for example, we have built a customs valuation system for Tanzania Revenue Authority. So what it does is it checks all the imported items and it calculates correct tax and the customs duty. Okay, so what we call as a valuation system, and it helps the government to save millions and millions of dollars because now they are able to calculate and prevent people underpaying.
As head of a global IT solutions company, his day involves making contact with both local and international clients. Manoj Shankar's vision is to use African-based ideas in technology to solve challenges that are unique to the continent while creating employment opportunities for tech-savvy graduates.
Africa needs African solutions. Nobody can do business without adapting to the IT.
It's in developing solutions along with the capacity to win and deliver major national projects in countries across the continent and the world.
Incentivize, especially the domestic companies, the local companies, the African companies. I haven't seen much of initiatives from the governments across the region.
The company's global offices built to the tune of $1 million, an equivalent of 89 million shillings, have been stationed in Nairobi as Kenya is fast rising to become the one-stop technology hub, making Technobrain one of the few global African companies with presence and headquarters in Africa. Joy Doreen Bira, KTN Business. The journey of owning a house in Kenya has been a back-breaking exercise. This has seen property investors such as Shelter Freak float the idea that developers should instead focus on churning out rental houses. But what if you could combine both? Property developer Harun Nyamboki is putting a mixed-use development that seeks to put Kenyans on the rent-to-own-a-home path, and KTN's Phil Keitani has the details.
The thought of talking to a financial institution to get a mortgage has been a harrowing experience for most. That will perhaps explain the low uptake of mortgages with only 30,000 mortgage accounts in the country. But some developers are changing the tact to get their houses bought. The occupy-as-you-pay model to home ownership is fairly new, but remove the stress associated with buying a house upfront.
Recent research indicated that 80% of those that are staying in urban areas are tenants. So only 20% are staying in their own houses.
Moke Garden developers are trying out the strategy in their 300-unit development in Athi River. The scheme will allow buyers to raise the initial deposit as they occupy the houses of choice. The offer is a waiver subject to minimum monthly deposit payments, period and other occupancy terms and conditions. For those with a little more in the bank, can get discounted terms on the 8.5 million shillings homes.
Our target market is basically middle and lower middle class. In other words, we are talking about the young professionals, those that have entered into the job market recently.
The offer means the home buyer in the estate will be able to channel money to otherwise meant for rent to pay for the purchase as they sort out other financial obligations and arrange for mortgages. On Occupy As You Pay basis, a buyer will be required to pay an initial 280,000 shillings to gain possession of the house, while they make minimum monthly payments of 105,000 shillings in 12 months. The rise of Moke Gardens from the slopes of Lukenya Hills and a few distance from Daystar University is a clear indication that the real estate development is no longer a monopoly of Nairobi County and that other counties around Nairobi are taking advantage of the shortfall of housing in the city to provide cheap and affordable housing for the middle income. Philip Keitan, KTN, from Machakos County.
Right, well, just before we wrap up this bulletin, let's go back to our big Q tonight. We asked you whether you think that the victims of Pastor Kanyari's schemes are the ones to blame for their misfortunes. And we've got tons and tons and tons of feedback tonight. Let's take a quick look at some of it. But before that, your poll result tonight, 63% of you say yes, they are to blame. Only 37% saying no.
Let me start with David Koech here at David Koilege 96, who says they are to blame indeed because they have eyes to see and brains to reason.
All right, well, there's one here that says, with such tricks, this guy has talent, it's just focused in the wrong direction. Such minds are very enterprising and can be resourceful if directed correctly. And you think it's not his fault?
The guy has a point. Sydney Obiero here says, no, the members were true and thought the church was true. This man should be jailed and the church closed.
One here from Ruaka, this is Mburu Gashero saying, no, Kenyans get excited about everything, exposing themselves to conmen, from fake pastors to slavery in Saudi Arabia. Kanyari was just unlucky.
Alfred Okotiti here says, yes, they have only themselves to blame for being led like sheep to the slaughterhouse.
Now, this is an interesting one from Charlie in Kasarani. He says money has been poured to tarnish the otherwise good name of Mtumishi wa Mungu. By the way, are the phone lines for Pastor Kanyari still working? Nataka kupanda mbegu. Okay, aokoe timu yangu Manu. Okay, I think that was...
As an ardent Manchester United fan, I will stay away from that one. Zephaniah Nchiris here says, partly they are to blame. As a country, we haven't learned from previous gullible ministers of the word.
Well, thank you very much for your feedback this evening and for taking part in our Big Q. Also for watching KTN. Did you say you're a Man U supporter?
Yes, ardent.
My condolences. Thank you so much.
There's no crisis.
Really?
There's no crisis. We're fine.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us for KTN Prime tonight. Our sign language interpreter was William Silla. I'm Nancy Kachingira.
My name is Wilson Mburu. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night. Have a good night.